They said 9. The clock on the wall clicks past 9:12, and the cup of tea beside me wears a thin gray skin like sorrow left to cool. My suitcase waits at my feet, small and obedient. The scarf my grandson gave me looped on top like a promise I keep touching to be sure it's still there. The driveway beyond the curtain is a pale strip of morning with nothing in it but the wind. I don't sit so much as perch, ready to spring, my coat buttoned to the throat. The house hums softly around me. Refrigerator, furnace, old bones settling, an orchestra of waiting. Every sound from the street is a spark in the dark. A door slams somewhere, a distant laugh, the faint rattle of a truck with ladders. I stand and pull the curtain back again. My palm leaves a fogged print on the cold glass. No headlights, no familiar grill easing to the curb. Just the mailbox with its mouth shut, the maple tree throwing long bars of shadow across the yard, and the little drift of snow the plow built at the end of my walk, crusted over like a scab. The phone lies face up on the arm of the couch, as still and polished as a stone on a grave. I watch it. I talk to it with my eyes. Ring. Come on, ring. A small, foolish prayer. The minute hand jumps. I can feel time tightening in my chest, a string wound around something tender until it cuts. Traffic, I say aloud. To nobody. A train crossing. They'll turn the corner any moment. I add a bright lilt to my voice that doesn't belong to me. A better woman would pour the tea to warm it, but my hands won't unclasp from each other. My gloves sit on the end table like quiet animals. I want to slip into them, but I won't risk being clumsy when the car pulls up. I can almost hear the quick tap of feet on my steps, the muffled knock, the breathless, "We're here, Grandma!" The sound blooms so real that I'm already halfway up when I remember it isn't true. I sit again. I fold myself small. I look at the scarf. The scarf looks back. A corner of an old photograph peeks from the zipper pocket of my suitcase. I don't remember tucking it there. In the picture, washed pale by the years, there's a roadside diner with a cracked white sign and a pie in the window. A boy with peanut butter on his face holds my hand like he's afraid the wind might take me. I push the photograph deeper into the pocket before my eyes can start their stinging. No time for that. It's early yet. It's not even half past the hour. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barks, high and insistent, then stops like it remembered it's not allowed to speak. A thin ray of sun slides across the rug, picks off the fringes, and sets them on fire. I decide to refresh the tea after all, not because I want it, but because doing something keeps the ache from settling in. I move carefully, like a new hinge. The kettle on the stove is cool. I light the burner and wait for the first shy whisper of steam. I look at the clock above the sink because I can't help it. 9:23. I shut my eyes against the numbers and listen to the house breathe. The kettle never gets to sing. A noise outside pops like a cork, and my heart leaps. I turn off the flame and go so fast I nearly forget my cane, which leans faithful against the fridge. I catch it under my palm and slide to the front window. A delivery van idles by, the driver dragging a box to a porch 4 doors down. He wears a cap too thin for the cold, and when he laughs into his phone, it's a sound for somebody else. I step back as if I've been caught doing something private, and the curtain settles against my knuckles with a whisper. Just late, I say to the quiet room. It happens. I won't be the one who slows everyone down. The clock gives another click. I force a smile that presses my cheeks into strange shapes, and it hurts more than not smiling at all. I take a sip of the cooled tea. It's bitter now, tasting of old leaves and waiting. I set it down and rehearse the way I'll open the door. Standing straight, not too eager. My eyes bright and friendly, but not wet. My coat already buttoned, so I won't make them wait. I will say, traffic, was it? Like a person who understands roads and detours. I will not glance at the dashboard clock when I climb in. I will not count the apology that doesn't come. A gust of wind noses the edge of the curtain. I tuck it back in place and catch my reflection in the glass. This older face I sometimes don't recognize. A fine web of lines at the corners of the eyes that grew there the way frost grows overnight. There is a dignity to it, I tell myself. There is a story in every crease. I tilt my head to see it. The face looks back at me, patient and foolish in equal measure, and I think of the scarf again, the soft wool bright against my coat like a flag. I pick up the phone and check the ringer for the 3rd time. Full volume. I call anyway, letting the number ring and ring in my ear. as if I can send the sound down the street to drag them here by the sleeve. On the third ring, it clicks to the woman who tells me the mailbox is full. Her voice is smooth and certain. I leave something cheerful that sounds like a stranger living behind my ribs. "I'm ready whenever you are," I say, a sentence stitched too tightly, careful not to fray. When I hang up, the quiet in the house has a weight to it. It settles on my shoulders like a shawl I didn't choose. I smooth the cushion next to me, where a small coat might have tumbled in a hurry, where crumbs might have jumped like startled birds. The cushion remains unruffled, smugly clean. The light has shifted. The gold on the rug is turning pale, as if the morning has decided on another plan. The minute hand vaults forward again. 9:37. I run my thumb along the suitcase handle until it warms. Through the curtain, the driveway lies blank, as a page no one will write on. My little maple tree scratches the air with its fingers. Far down the block, a car turns, not mine, and continues. I listen to it fade as if I could will the sound to bend back toward me. "They wouldn't go without me," I whisper to the scarf, to the photograph pressed inside the suitcase, to the teacup crusted with a skin I don't wipe away. And yet the space at the curb stays hollow. And yet the wind keeps arranging the leaves where a tire should have made a mark. And yet the clock tells the truth no matter how I try to charm it. I sit very still so my heart won't make a mess of me and wait for the doorknob to turn. The kettle whistled softly, a thin ribbon of steam curling into the cool morning air. I poured the water over the tea bag, watching the amber swirl bloom in the cup. My suitcase sat by the front door, neatly zipped, scarf looped on top like a promise waiting to be kept. Through the window, the street lay still except for a neighbor's dog nosing at the hedge. My phone buzzed once on the counter. I wiped my hands and reached for it. A message from Laura. "Just a quick stop to grab coffee before we get you. Be ready." The little heart emoji at the end tried to sound cheerful, but I noticed the time. It was later than I thought. I typed back a small, "Of course," adding my own smile, then set the phone down. When the knock came, it wasn't Laura or my grandson. It was Peter, their neighbor, the one with the green truck. He leaned on the doorframe, smelling faintly of engine oil. "Morning," he said, glancing at the suitcase. "Headed somewhere?" "Road trip with the kids," I told him, smiling. "They said they'd swing by." He nodded, polite enough, but his eyes flickered past me to the living room, the ticking clock. "Hope the weather holds." "Well, I'd better." He gestured vaguely toward the driveway and was gone. The tea was cooling fast. I took a sip, the warmth just shy of comforting. Then another buzz. A photo this time, from Laura, the three of them in a coffee shop booth, takeaway cups in hand. My grandson's smile was wide, his chin tipped toward the pastry on the table. "Best muffins in town," the caption read. I stared at the picture longer than I meant to. My scarf slipped from the top of the suitcase to the floor without me noticing. I picked it up, smoothed it over my knee, and looped it back into place. The tea sat untouched after that. I fill the kettle out of habit and catch myself whispering the steps as if I were teaching someone. Tap on, not too hard, lid back, wait for the shiver. No one's here to learn it. Still, I speak to the kitchen the way women do when the air is their only student. The scarf sits where I left it, draped over the arm of the chair by the door, a bright loop of wool waiting for a neck that isn't going anywhere. I touch it each time I pass like a rosary bead. The same small press of thumb and forefinger, as if confirming the day is real. Breakfast is a single slice of toast that I butter to the corners. I place a second plate without thinking. A muscle memory from years when another person's hunger set the clocks. And then I lift it again, slide it quietly back into the cupboard. The plate whispers against the shelf like it's embarrassed for me. The kettle clicks. The tea grows the thin skin it always does when I forget to drink it right away. I peel it back with my spoon. It reforms while I stare out at the driveway. I keep the coat on, just for now. I move through rooms at 3/4 speed, listening for the sound of tires, listening for anything that will require me to be quick. Instead, the house answers with its old alphabet. A pipe settling, the refrigerator's hum, the tick-tick-tick of the clock that has been telling the truth longer than anyone in this family. When it knocks the quarter hour with its delicate throat, I fold the scarf over the chair again so it won't fall, smoothing the fringe like hair. A small chore, then another. I wipe the crumbs that aren't there. I water the philodendron and apologize to it for the winter light. I pull yesterday's mail from the pocket of my coat. A coupon sheet addressed to resident, a glossy catalog for clothes that wouldn't hang right on a body like mine, and a dentist reminder with my name printed too dark, as if insisting. I stand at the counter with the stack in my hand and think. There used to be report cards and permission slips, drawings done in marker thick enough to bleed through. I used to pin them to the corkboard with smiley pushpins. The corkboard is bare now, pocked like a moon. My neighbor's trash can thumps to the curb. For a moment, I mishear it as a car door, and I'm at the curtain before I can scold myself. The scarf slides from the chair when I move too quickly. I catch it mid-fall, press it to my chest, and laugh a little, the breathless kind that has no joy in it. Not yet, I tell it. I'm talking to wool. I tuck it back into place, careful, like it could break. I make a list I don't need. Milk, bread, batteries. Call the bank to ask about that service fee that appeared in December. I write trip confirm and then cross it out. I look at the slash until the letters are just strokes. On the list's edge, I draw a loop of yarn, the scarf reduced to a doodle before I catch myself and turn the page. By 11, I've crept around my own house so quietly I surprise myself in mirrors. I glance at my face and it is the same and not the same. A softness at the jaw, a light still in the eyes that refuses to go out. I wind the scarf once around my neck to feel its weight. It warms the place where a voice might thicken if I let it. I take it off, smooth it flat on the chair. Waiting should not crease it. Lunch is soup from a can-eye doctor with pepper and a splash of yesterday's coffee by mistake when my hand wanders. I taste it, wince, and eat it anyway because I was raised not to waste. I set a second spoon down from the drawer and then return it. The quick reversal, a tiny choreography of shame. At noon, the mail truck rattles by without stopping. The mailbox's red flag lifts a fraction in the wind and falls again like a slow blink. My phone lights with a calendar reminder labeled Family Trip Pickup. I don't remember typing the hyphen. I tap the screen once and the bubble vanishes. Nothing replaces it. I thumb through old messages as if evidence might be a kind of comfort. There is the promise. We'll swing by, it's on the way nested among grocery lists and weather warnings and photos of other people's dinners. I reread it until the words feel translated. Swing by. On the way. I place the phone face down and notice how it looks like a closed eye. I tidy the guest room out of habit. The comforter lies smooth, untouched for months, except for the slight dent where I once set a suitcase to air it. I open the window to let the cold in because something in me wants to feel weather that matches the interior. On the dresser, a small bowl holds buttons and safety pins, and the smell of old lavender. The scarf would look nice here, I think. A touch of color in a room that never asks for it. Instead, I carry it back to the chair by the door. That's where it belongs. In reach. Ready. The afternoon thins. Shadows lay themselves across the rug like folded coats. I make more tea and forget it, then swallow it cold as medicine. I glance at the door with the same quiet question and the same quiet answer. The scarf sink marks deeper into the cushion each time I lift it and put it down, lift it and put it down. A small indentation that proves I was preparing to be included in something. I try the television for company, 2 people on a set, laughing too hard over a blender that can crush ice and hopes. I mute it. I move to the window. Far off, a child runs, arms pinwheeling, a mother calling from a porch. Their voices don't reach me, but I fill in the words from memory. Not far. Watch the curb. Come back. I fold the scarf again, this time into a neat square, then undo it and let it fall long, then gather it into a soft loop. It is the same scarf every time, but it looks different depending on how I'm allowed to wear it. By late afternoon, my body remembers dinner even if my mind does not. I peel a potato, slice it thin, fry it with onion because that is a meal for people who need kindness they can taste. I place the plate on the table. Just one. Set the fork on the right, though I am left-handed, an old accommodation I never corrected. I eat standing up the way caretakers do, though there is no one to serve. Between bites, I touch the scarf where it rests, a small tether back to a version of the day where the door opens, and my name is said out loud, as if it still belongs to me. The light fades early, the kind of winter retreat that makes you lose hours. I switch on the lamp by the door so the entryway glows warm, as if guests are expected, as if I am the kind of woman who sits by the window and waves. The The scarf throws a gentle shadow over the chair's arm, a curved shape on fabric that suggests a person I can almost see. I straighten it one last time, then leave it be. In the quiet, I can hear myself thinking in two tenses at once. I was needed. I am spare. The sentences do not argue. They simply take turns. I hold the scarf to my throat without tying it, feeling its soft insistence, bright, tender, ready. And then I let it slide back where it has been all day, waiting as I disappear around it, leaving the smallest proof that I came through this room again and again, that I prepared, that I believed. The memory arrives not as a thought, but as a temperature, the way warm air rushes your face when a diner door swings open on a winter day. A brass bell above the frame tinkled. The smell of bacon and coffee and syrup sat in the light like a promise. We had come off the highway to thaw our hands and stretch our legs. Snow hissed under the tires when we parked, the kind of snow that glitters like salt. I remember brushing it from my coat and laughing when my grandson stomped extra hard just to make a show of entering. "Grandma gets the window," he declared, already tugging my sleeve toward a booth. My son grinned and said, "That's the law," like I was the captain of the day. I slid into the red vinyl seat and felt the warmth rise through the cushion into my hips. Outside, the roadside sign, white letters half missing, flashed open in red. Inside, a waitress with tired eyeliner and a kind mouth brought me a heavy mug. The first sip of coffee tasted like toasted nuts and earth, and for once it didn't go cold while I waited for anyone. "Map, boss," my grandson said, tapping the spiral notebook I always carried. "Where to next?" He loved that notebook. The wavy lines of my handwriting, the penciled mileage between dots, the way I drew tiny stars where the views were best. I traced our route with the end of my spoon as if the table itself were a map, my fingers skimming from town to town. He watched me like people watch magicians. The waitress set a plate of pancakes that steamed like small suns. Butter slid toward their edges. Syrup pooled and gleamed. My son cut them in halves and then quarters. Easy, unthinking care, the way he used to tie his own shoes when he was small and proud. "We're only here because she knows the good places," he told the waitress, nodding at me. It was the kind of sentence you want witnesses for, because it keeps echoing long after the plates are cleared. She smiled and touched the rim of my cup with the coffee pot in a quick salute before topping it off. My grandson pressed his face to the glass to fog a circle and drew a little heart with his finger. "That's for you," he said, embarrassed as soon as he'd done it, cheeks pinking. When I kissed the top of his head, his hair smelled like fresh air and that mint shampoo kids like. He wriggled and then leaned back into me without thinking about it, the way children do when you are still the gravity of their world. He found the scarf by the register while I was paying. A simple wool thing, blue with a thin mustard stripe. It hung on a wire tree with other winter things, gloves, caps, a pom-pom hat that looked like a cupcake. He lifted the scarf with both hands like a delicate animal. "Try it," he urged, eyes impossible to deny. The wool was softer than it looked. He circled behind me, trying to be careful, his breath warm on my neck as he tucked the ends through. The bell tinkled again as someone else came in. The door let a slice of cold in that made the scarf feel even warmer. "You look like one of us," he pronounced, solemn with the power of bestowing membership. My son leaned on the counter beside us, pride spreading across his face like morning light. "She always has," he said. "We'd get lost without her." He said it matter of fact, no show to it, like he was naming the weather. I paid for the scarf with cash that had been folded so long it held the shape of the bills it had slept against. The woman at the register wrapped it in a crinkly bag. My grandson pulled it back out, refusing ceremony. "Wear it now," he insisted. For luck, back at the booth we took a photo on my son's phone. 3 faces close, steam rising from plates, the blue and mustard bright at my throat. My grandson stretched his arm as far as it would go and declared, "Say road!" We said it, and the word cracked into laughter. When we finally stood to leave, he refused to let me carry my own coat. "I've got it, Grandma," he said, the top of his head square against my shoulder as we walked in little steps toward the door. The bell gave us one last ring. Outside, the wind found us, sharp and playful. The scarf met it head-on and kept me warm. Back in the car, he fell asleep within minutes, mouth open, lashes dark against his skin. My son drove with one hand, the other resting on the gear shift, the easy posture of someone moving through a day he trusts. You were right about this place, he said quietly, not to wake the boy. The tires thrummed a steady song. The heater blew cinnamon-scented air left over from some forgotten car freshener. I watched the highway pull us forward, the scarf's fringe lifting in the vent's breeze like a small flag. I felt central, not as a prize or a relic, but as a hinge necessary, solid, trusted. We stopped once more at the lookout where the land dropped away into a valley patched in snow and shadow. My grandson woke and scrambled onto the little stone wall, arms out like wings. "Take one more," he said, and I did him with the whole afternoon behind him, the scarf ends I'd wrapped around his neck for fun, brushing his chin. He squinted into the bright and shouted our next destination like a commander calling a course. I tucked the phone back into my pocket and thought, this is what it means to belong, to be asked where to next and to be believed when you answer. The present returns like a door closing quiet, decisive. The same scarf lies now on the arm of my chair by the door. It's blue and mustard, as vivid as that day. If I hold it up to the window, the stripe catches the light like it remembers being outdoors. When I smooth the fibers with my thumb, I can feel the twin of that old warmth rise in me, the weight of small hands settling it around my neck, the casual faith that said without saying, "You are with us." Out in the street, a car passes and keeps going. Inside, the mug in my hand cools faster than it should. I loop the scarf once, then let it fall back where it was, a bright tether between now and the booth where the pancakes steamed and the bell made its warm little music. I look at it until the room grows soft around the edges and I can almost hear my grandson's voice again, joyful and sure. "Map, boss, where to next?" At a little before 10, the light in the front hall went from pale to softly gold, the kind of glow that forgives a face. I took it as a sign. I lifted the scarf from the chair and looped it once, just enough to feel the wool recognize my skin. The kettle murmured. I poured hot water over the tea bag, and for the first time all morning, stayed long enough to see the color deepen just right. When I lifted the cup, the steam fogged my glasses and the world softened, hopeful, as if any minute the driveway would sprout tires and laughter. A car slowed at the corner. I felt it before I saw it, the particular hush of an engine easing down, the way a house listens. I set the cup down, straightened the scarf, and moved to the curtain. It was only the neighbor in her compact, one hand on the wheel, the other balancing a foil-covered casserole on the passenger seat. She glanced toward my window, that quick, almost shy look people give when they know something they'd rather not say. Her mouth tilted into a small warm curve, then away again as the car rolled on. The casserole flashed in the sunlight, a brief flare, and was gone. I told myself she was just late to someone else's kindness. My phone buzzed in my palm. The name lit the screen. Mark. My son. The hope rose like a startled bird. I cleared my throat. Why does the body always prepare for speeches we won't make? And slid my thumb to answer. There was a pocket of sound. Wind. The rolling thrum of tires. Music tinny and too cheerful. Then his voice. Near. Easy. Snacks are in the back. Careful with the juice. I smiled without meaning to. "Mark?" I said. The silk of the scarf warmed under my chin like a living thing. "Mark, I'm here. I'm ready." No one answered me. Laughter poured through, light as soda bubbles. Someone her by the cadence said, "We're ahead of schedule." He replied, "Good. I didn't want to." And then the sound shifted and blurred against fabric, my name lost in the fold of a pocket. "Hold on, buddy," he said to someone I couldn't see, voice fading. "We'll stop soon." The call cut off with that bright, thoughtless chirp phones make when you're no longer needed. The room reappeared around me, crisp and ordinary. I looked down at the cup. A thin skin had formed over the tea. When I touched it with the tip of my spoon, it broke in a little circle that closed again without me. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe they were circling the block. Maybe reception was bad near the coffee shop. I pressed redial and listened to the first ring, then the second, then the polished woman who says you've reached a mailbox that's full as if disappointment were a simple, routine thing. I left nothing this time. I listened to the quiet until even the refrigerator seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the recycling truck lurched along, that familiar mechanical clatter punctuating the morning like a metronome set to ordinary. The driver lifted his hand when he saw me by the window, a quick, friendly salute, then looked past me toward the end of the street where the day was headed. I lifted my hand in return, fingers grazing the scarf as if it were a note I needed to hit. Another ping, a message from Laura, bright as confetti on the screen. "How's your morning going? We're making good time." For a second, the room widened. I started to type, caught by a good instinct to keep my sentences small. "I'm here! I have my coat on! The scarf you—" But before I could finish, 3 gray dots blinked, and a second bubble appeared. "Oops! Meant to text Dad! See you later!" A winking face. The dots vanished. The first bubble remained, stranded, cheerful, and wrong. My reply shrank on the line and disappeared as if it had never been asked to be born. I took a breath that tried to be steady and wasn't. The scarf felt heavier than before, the wool settling like a hand that meant well but stayed too long. I loosened it, not all the way, just enough that air could pass. I went to the door and opened it to the cold. The porch boards creaked familiarly, old wood announcing me to no one. Across the street, Peter from the green truck was coiling a hose. He looked up, saw my suitcase through the glass, and in that tiny pause I watched him make a decision to be kind. He lifted his chin in a nod that said, "Both I see you and I won't make you say it out loud." I nodded back, grateful and embarrassed in the same small swallow. The wind lifted the end of the scarf and pressed it to my mouth like a shush. I stood there for a count that might have been 10 or might have been a lifetime, watching the street hold its shape. When I stepped back inside, the light in the hallway had shifted cooler. The tea on the table had cooled into itself completely, reflective as a small, dark window. I could see my face in it if I leaned just right, blurred around the edges, the way faces are at the start of tears that never come. I unlooped the scarf and laid it where it had been all morning, on the chair by the door. The fringe remembered how I'd arranged it earlier and fell into place without instruction, faithful as habit. I pressed my palm against the wool and left it there until warmth moved from me into it or from it into me. Hard to tell which. Then I removed my hand. The shape of my touch disappeared quickly, as if the fabric had never been held. When the clock on the wall clicked to the half hour, the sound landed differently, less like a promise, more like a verdict made by something neutral. I took a sip of the tea because that is what people do in houses when there is nothing else to do. It was flat and faintly bitter. I swallowed all the same. I turned off the porch light, not as punishment, not even as acceptance, just as a small correction to the story the house had been telling on my behalf. The scarf remained where I'd placed it, bright as ever, patient as ever. I looked at it the way you look at a faithful object when you realize it cannot do the one impossible thing you have asked of it, open a road that isn't there. The hope I'd held a tiny ember cupped in both hands didn't go out with a hiss. It just cooled quietly, the way evening cools a mug left on a table. I stood still long enough to feel the difference, then breathed in, breathed out, and let the room be what it was. The tea from this morning still sat on the counter, untouched, its surface gone flat and gray. I hadn't noticed until now that the bag had sunk to the bottom, curled like something drowned. The clock above the stove ticked with the same indifference it always had, but it seemed louder, heavier. I lowered myself into the chair by the window, the one I'd been sitting in on and off since sunrise. My scarf was still draped over the backrest, exactly where I'd set it days ago. I thought of picking it up, folding it, putting it away, but my arms felt leaden, as if the movement would cost more than I could afford. Outside, the light had thinned into that colorless late afternoon hue, the kind that erases edges from everything it touches. I used to think of it as cozy. Now it just felt like a quiet eraser moving over the world, starting with me. The phone lay face down on the table. I hadn't flipped it over in hours. No one had called, but still, I didn't want to see the screen light up for anything else but them. That hope had kept me near the door all morning. Now it just made my chest ache. I glanced at the suitcase, still packed, still zipped. That scarf looped on top like a ribbon on a gift no one wanted. I had ironed my blouse for this trip, polished my shoes, even set out a small tin of mints for the drive. All those little preparations sat there like a display for a life that never left the station. It's strange how silence can feel heavier than sound. The longer I sat, the more it pressed against my ribs, until I could hear my own breathing as if I were standing inside an empty hall. For a moment, I wondered if they'd notice if I didn't answer the phone next time, not out of malice just. What if I didn't? Would there be a pause in their day, even a brief one? Or would it be like this scarf, draped on a chair for days, unseen, gathering dust until someone finally tossed it aside without thinking? I looked at it again. Its red had dulled in the fading light, losing that warm hue my grandson had chosen when he wrapped it for me last Christmas. "It's your color, Grandma," he'd said. Now it just looked tired. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. Anger requires fuel, and I felt empty. All that was left was a kind of hollow stillness, the sort that comes after the storm, except here, the sky never clears. The light in the kitchen had flattened to the pale gray of early evening. I'd been sitting at the table so long that the wood grain seemed to shift under my eyes, as if it wanted to lead me somewhere. The scarf lay where I'd left it, still folded over the chair, its colors muted now in the dim. I reached out and smoothed one edge between my fingers. It was still warm, not from my touch, but from the memory I refused to let fade. I thought about how many times I had waited like this. Waited for the car to pull up, the knock to sound, the phone to ring with their voice, and how often the waiting had been the whole event, the arrival never coming. It struck me clear, as if someone had said it aloud, that I had built my days around their timing, like a clock set to a chime that never struck. I let the scarf slip into my lap. Its fringe brushed against my palm, and I thought of the diner where I'd first worn it, of the boy who'd insisted it was my color. That day had felt easy, certain. I had been a fixed point in their plans. Now I realized no one had told me I couldn't be again. I had simply stopped claiming the space. Something inside shifted, not loudly, not with fanfare, but like a door easing shut in a quiet room. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew I would not be here, in this chair, the next time they decided my day for me. I folded the scarf not to put it away, but to place it carefully on top of the suitcase still by the door. It looked right there, like it was meant to travel. The act was small, almost invisible, but it made my chest feel less tight. Not this time, I thought. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise to myself. The light shifted again, and for the first time that day, I noticed the air outside had turned crisp and sharp, the kind that clears your head when you step into it. I would. Soon. For now, I sat a little straighter in my chair, one hand resting on the scarf, feeling the weave hold steady under my palm. It was enough to know that the next road I traveled wouldn't be one they had to invite me onto. It would be mine. I lifted the suitcase from where it had been waiting all day. The handle fit into my palm with a satisfying weight, solid but not heavy like something that belonged to me and no one else. The scarf rested neatly on top, its colors richer now under the lamp's glow, as if it had been waiting for this exact light. I didn't rush. The zipper's smooth hum was the first real sound in hours. I opened the case, ran my hand over the folded clothes, and took out 2 blouses. I replaced them with the cardigan I loved, the one soft enough to feel like forgiveness. Into the side pocket went my small leather notebook, the one I used for jotting down places to visit, meals to try, people to remember. The kettle clicked off behind me. I'd set it going without thinking. I poured the water into my favorite travel mug, the one with the chipped enamel and the faint scent of cinnamon no matter how many times I washed it. The steam curled upward, touching my face in a way that felt like a gentle nudge. I tied the scarf around the suitcase handle. Not tucked away, not folded, just knotted loosely so its fringe could move with each step. A flag of sorts. Not a plea, not a signal to be found, simply a marker that said, "This is mine, and I am going somewhere." I put on my coat, slipped my feet into shoes that were broken in but still polished. When I opened the door, the cold air caught in my lungs like the first sharp taste of something new. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me, with the same care I'd use for shutting a book I loved. The street was quiet except for the whisper of leaves skimming the pavement. My neighbor's dog barked twice, not in alarm, but recognition. I walked past the place where I had stood earlier, peeking through curtains, and kept going. Each step felt deliberate, like I was leaving small, invisible imprints that only I needed to follow. I didn't go far, just to the corner bus stop, where the streetlight spilled a circle of honey-colored light on the pavement. I knew the schedule well enough. I knew where the bus could take me. The thought alone was enough to warm my hands inside my pockets. When the bus rounded the bend, its headlights brushed the scarf, making the mustard stripe flare for a second before fading back into the night. I didn't step forward. Not yet. But I knew I could. That was the point. I turned, suitcase handle still in my hand, and walked back at the same steady pace. The house came into view, its windows gold against the dark. It didn't look like a cage now. Just a place I could leave when I chose. Inside, I set the suitcase by the door again, but this time angled toward the world, the scarf trailing toward the light. I let my hand rest on the handle for a moment, not in farewell, but in quiet agreement. I was ready, whether anyone invited me or not. The morning came gray and thin, the kind that doesn't bother announcing itself. I moved slowly through the kitchen, touching nothing, letting the quiet speak. The suitcase still sat by the door, scarf tied to its handle, fringe resting against the floor. I stood looking at it, not as a question anymore, but as something already answered. I picked up the scarf. The wool held the faint scent of cedar from the closet, layered with the ghost of cold air from the night before. I wrapped it once around my neck, not for warmth, but because it was mine. My hands smoothed it flat across my chest. The gesture felt like closing the cover of a book after the last page, no drama. Just the clean satisfaction of being done. I stepped to the front window. The driveway stretched empty, same as yesterday, and the day before. This time, I didn't watch it. I turned the latch on the window instead, letting in a thin ribbon of air that lifted the sheer curtain. It caught for a moment on the edge of the suitcase, then fell back, like a bow at the end of a performance. I walked to the wall by the kitchen phone. A small hook had hung there for years, meant for keys or notes. I'd never used it for either. Now I looped the scarf over it, letting it hang full length, its colors standing out against the pale paint. A banner not waiting, not pleading, just existing in plain sight. From there, I unpacked the suitcase, slowly, without sorrow. Each blouse went back into the drawer, the notebook into the desk. The cardigan I left draped over my reading chair, as if I'd just stepped away for tea. The travel mug I washed and set in the cupboard, enamel chip turned inward so it wouldn't catch the eye. The scarf stayed on the hook. I passed it once more before heading to the living room, running my fingers through the fringe. This time, I didn't pause to remember where it had come from or what it used to mean. I simply let it hang there, a marker of where I had been and where I wouldn't wait again. When I sat with my tea, the view from my chair had shifted. The suitcase was gone. The scarf was no longer on the chair by the door. It was part of the wall now, part of my space. Outside, a car passed and slowed, maybe even glanced toward the house. I didn't move. The steam rose from the cup and blurred the edges of the room. I sipped, tasting it fully before it cooled. In the other room, the scarf swayed slightly in the draft from the open window, as if nodding in agreement. It wasn't a farewell to them, not really. It was a farewell to the waiting. The day warmed without me noticing. By the time I opened the front door, the cold had loosened its grip, replaced by the soft, almost imperceptible promise of spring. The air carried that faint mineral scent of thawing earth. And somewhere a sparrow tested its voice. I stepped outside with no particular destination, only the urge to feel the ground under my shoes. The suitcase was gone from its post by the door. It sat upstairs now, half empty, waiting for a trip of my choosing. I liked the idea that it could rest until I said otherwise. The street was quiet in a way that felt less lonely than before. I could hear my neighbor's wind chime, each note slow and unhurried, as though it had all the time in the world to speak. I walked to the end of the block and back again, nodding to the dog who barked in greeting, smiling at the child chalking a crooked sun on the pavement. Inside, the scarf still hung from the wall hook. Sunlight reached it now, sliding across the wool and making the mustard stripe flare, the red deepen. It looked nothing like a relic. It looked alive, like it had shifted purpose without losing itself. I thought of all the mornings I had sat by the curtain, tea cooling beside me, pulse quickening at every engine hum. I could still see myself there, but she felt like someone I used to know, a version of me that hadn't yet realized she could step off the porch without permission. In the kitchen, I filled the kettle and set it on the burner. While it heated, I opened the small leather notebook from my suitcase. Its pages smelled faintly of paper and dust, untouched for too long. On a fresh page, I wrote down 3 places within a bus ride that I'd been meaning to visit. The art gallery with the glass atrium, the park with the wildflower meadow, the old diner in the next town over. I didn't date them. They weren't deadlines. They were invitations to myself. The kettle's whistle rose, steady and sure. I poured the water into my travel mug, the chipped enamel one, and added a cinnamon stick, letting the scent fill the kitchen. I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting its warmth settle into my fingers. Before sitting down, I walked to the scarf and adjusted it slightly on the hook, letting the fringe fall straighter. It was a small thing, but it mattered, like straightening a photograph of someone you love. I took my tea to the window. Outside, a car passed, slowing just enough to stir the curtain. I didn't look up to see who it was. I sipped, savoring the heat, the faint sweetness of the cinnamon. This was my home, my time, my choice. No one could take that from me without my consent, and I had stopped giving it away. The sunlight shifted again, catching on the scarf's edge so that it seemed to nod in the gentle draft. I smiled, not at the memory of who gave it to me, but at the fact that it was still here, still mine, still standing in plain sight. Sometimes the people who open their door are the ones who open your heart.